am so excited to talk to you today about creating an unstoppable team, a productive team that doesn't require you to be 100% involved all the time. Now, if you're in for this, definitely put in the comments in, because this conversation is for you. So I chronically hear from business owners, if I could only get out of the day-to-day, if I could only get away from having to micromanage my team or do their work for them, it seems like they don't care as much as I do. Now, if you have said any of those things, put I in the comments. I completely understand. I have said all those things. Before we get started, I want to introduce myself. My name is Emily Hawkins, and after spending 15 years in the corporate world in processes and actually creating processes for productive results, managing teams and millions of dollars in 3 different countries, I left the corporate world to actually teach employees and small businesses how to understand what their talents are, and also how to manage the teams that they have so that they can streamline their time and they can leverage that team to make more of an impact and do it in less time, working less, because that's really key. And I want to tell you something that I haven't really shared much here, which is one of the reasons why I decided to leave the corporate world. And it was because I have 2 children. And at the time that I left, my children were 3 and 5. Let's see, 3, 4, 5. No, they must have been 2 and 5. Oh my gosh, 2 and 5. So my children were 2 and 5 when I left the corporate world. And what I want to share with you here is the parallels between team and children. Now, it doesn't matter if you have children or not. You can hang with me on this analogy because it is truly designed to teach you how we really are looking at leadership incorrectly. We are looking at how we manage people incorrectly. And the person that I know that did this the worst was me. So when I got pregnant with my daughter, she's my oldest, I read 13 parenting books, y'all. 13. Now, if you have children, you know that you're probably on the other side of this laughing. I hope that you are, because you know that there are a million parenting books out there, but until you are doing the thing, it's just not the same, right? And I can tell you 6 weeks in, when my daughter was crying in the middle of the night and we couldn't figure out why, and I'm in the middle of a book, my husband took the book and was like, it's not in the book. We're gonna have to figure it out on our own. And I mean, how similar is that to leadership? When you have a team of people, you can read all the books and know all the things, but then there is a hard conversation. There is something that comes up that is not in any of the books that you've read, right? And so the parallels were so similar, and it was so interesting that the first team member I ever managed was someone who didn't need to be managed. And so I thought I was a great leader. And I think we've all had these people as well, right? It's almost like adopting like an 18-year-old, right? You don't need to teach that 18-year-old how to walk. They already know those things. So all of a sudden you're like, I'm a great parent because I gave this person shelter and I listened to them when they talk, but all the work behind the scenes you didn't have to do, right? So that made me ballsy, y'all. It made me super cocky. Like, I am clearly a great leader because this person, who by the way trained me because he was there and I inherited him when he came on the team, all of a sudden I was like, I am great at this, right? I will tell you that my daughter did this to me as well. She was an amazing kid. And so I got cocky with that and had her brother, who is exact opposite of her, which is so similar again to leadership. So you figure out how something works with one employee and you're like, I figured it out. And then you try it on somebody else and they operate entirely differently, right? So incredibly common. So I want to walk through with you some things, the parallels that I learned in parenting and managing. And one thing I want to say is I think that we try to make our people something that they're not when we start out. So if you are very busy, you are an incredibly busy business owner, and you need people, right? Well, here's the thing. You need to train those people. Just like a new mom who's like, I really want to have children, right? But when they come out, they're helpless. So you have to feed them. You have to clothe them. You have to bathe them. There's a lot of work that goes on the front end of that. Now, my daughter is now 11. Am I doing any of that now? No. My parenting has evolved, just like your leadership has to evolve. But no matter how capable someone is when they come on your team, you have to treat them like they've never worked a day in their life in terms of your business, how you do things, why you do them a certain way. And this will serve you. Now, it feels laborious, but for every hour that you spend with a team member, a new team member, you save 10 on the back end. And that is crucially important to understand. Now, you might be saying to yourself, I don't have time for that. Right. I get that. Because right now you think there's so much work that has to be done that I don't have time to actually train properly. But what happens is you're actually moving this problem further and further downstream, because all of a sudden this problem that you have never goes away, because time is always a problem, right? And when you have children, you can't say that, right? You just have to teach them how to walk. You have to feed them. You have to do these things. It's funny though, we hire people and we're just like, oh, let me just throw some people at it and let them do their thing and let them go. But if you brought a baby home from the hospital, you wouldn't be like, oh, I'm just going to put them in their bed and they're good and just leave them, right? No, you have to constantly nurture and love and care for that baby. Now, as that child gets older, how you love and nurture and care for them evolves and changes. And it is exactly the same for your employees. Exactly the same. You're not teaching them how to walk, but metaphorically you are, right? Because they've never walked in your business before. And so we do a lot of assuming with employees that we don't do with our children, right? We don't assume that a newborn is going to be able to pay our taxes for us, right? But sometimes we hire someone and we're like, oh, you know exactly how to do all of these things. So I'm just going to have you jump right in and I'm going to have you pay our taxes and I'm going to have you do this and that. And they don't know how your business runs. They don't understand how you do certain things, what your processes are, what's your customer experience like. How long are people, normally waiting on X, Y, and Z, right? So when we slow down and we train people, we actually learn so much more. So again, I want to share these. I got some photos of my family because I love an analogy, and I am by no means an amazing parent, but I can tell you that these two little people, these pictures are a little bit older. My son is now 8, my daughter is 11. But what I will tell you is this is the thing that I learned that was so parallel with managing a team of people. So the first one is the more time you have, the more time you waste. So when I had children and when I got a team of people, I realized that I had to become more productive. Why? Because everything hinged on my productivity, right? When you have a team, and I actually worked with a business owner who said this to me, oh gosh, you're telling me that if I want to communicate all these things to my team, that I have to be on point, right? I have to make sure that my end of the project, of the tasks, is complete. And this person got real quiet because in that moment they realized they were the bottleneck. And I will say the same is true for children, right? I actually became more productive because I realized I had less time to do things. And when you have a team, you can do the same. You can realize all of a sudden, oh, wow, I need to train these people. This is what my day looks like. I have less time than I thought, and I need to be spending it with these people. So I can tell you that I became a productivity machine when I had children. I got promoted twice when my daughter was less than a year old because I was just firing on all cylinders. I figured out the game. Now, one thing I want to tell you is sarcasm and children and sarcasm in your employees, not a good mix. Not a good mix. So, what happens when we use sarcasm? So, it's funny, right? I love being funny too, but it confuses the hell out of anyone that we work with, and it confuses our children because they take everything literally. And I want you to think for a minute about any boss that you've ever had that used sarcasm. And I have a feeling that you probably second guessed that sarcasm. Like, ooh, was that directed at me? Was that about me? Am I the problem? And our children they do that as well. And what sarcasm does is it actually takes away safety inside of your business. So if you are somebody who's sarcastic, y'all, I'm super sarcastic, it will hurt your team because all of a sudden you are taking away psychological safety. And when you take away safety, what happens in your business is the logical part of your brain that's cause and effect actually shuts down, and the person is just in fight or flight, meaning get this off my plate, make sure this customer's served. Like they start to go into survival mode. That is not a long-term solution for your business. You will burn employees out. You will have horrible customer reviews. And it can all be linked back sometimes to just one little snarky, sarcastic remark. I'm super guilty of this with my children as well. And you never want them to feel that way. I want to tell you that barking orders at people also does not work. This picture was actually taken when my kids were getting on the school bus a few years ago for the first day of school. So clearly they were not happy, first day of school. But think about it for a minute. When you bark orders at people, does that make them want to do a better job? If they see you stressed and they see you angry, they are going to think it is about them. That's just how we naturally work as human beings. And you're really biting into and eating into that psychological safety. So rather than rushing in with demands, it is incredibly important on a team and in your parenting journey to talk about encouraging things. Wow, I really loved how you put that report together. Now we're going to work on this, this, and this. I really loved how you handled this one client that we have. Now let's do this, this, and this, right? You've got to give some encouragement. I think we all joke about children in therapy and like our children in therapy, or maybe you've gone to therapy. I've gone to therapy. It was amazing. And what do we talk about in therapy? We're never like, my parents were so encouraging, right? You're like, I felt belittled. I felt small. I felt not heard. Maybe you talk about your boss and you might say the same exact things, right? In previous roles. We don't want our employees going to therapy and talking about us like that, do we? And so we have to remember, as much as we want to bark orders at people, it's not an effective way of communicating because all of a sudden, again, we're taking away that psychological safety. And so we have to take a beat and then communicate. And I know sometimes that feels hard, but I'm telling you, when you do these things, you end up saving yourself time down the road. So for, again, every hour of encouragement, planning with your team, training that team member, you save 10 hours a week moving forward because you are training them the proper way. You got to be patient. You got to be patient. And what's so interesting about patience is that it's contagious. So if you are impatient, everyone around you will also be impatient. If you're patient, then everyone else around you will become more patient. So whatever you are exuding is what everyone else picks up on. And so when you are patient with your employees, all of a sudden, back to that safety factor, they realize that they can come to you with questions. They're going to be more forthright. They're going to ask you something rather than just jumping in and doing it and then realizing I did it wrong and causing other things that go wrong in your business. Also, with your employees' training opportunities comes a great opportunity to talk to your customers, your clients, whoever these people are. Hey, I'm bringing on new people because the business is growing and things are going to be a little bit slower. We're going to need an extra day, an extra 72 hours because we're getting these people up to speed. And we want to make sure that our service does not impact you. In fact, we want exceptional service that's actually far exceeding what we've done in the past. And oh my gosh, who wouldn't want that, right? And so I just feel like it's really important to have patience with your team, but also make sure that you're doing that with your clients because they need to understand what you're doing as well. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is made of wood, by the way. It was at an ice cream stand after we had gone tubing, and it's made of wood, and my kids were legit licking it. I know, proud parent here. I am better at managing people maybe than this, but I thought it was a perfect image for be as specific as possible about what outcome you were looking for. So most of our employees want to do a great job for us. They don't come to work wanting to sabotage our business, piss off our customers. They want job security, right? They also maybe want advancement, a new challenge, new opportunities, but they don't always know what you need. And so it's really important that we are specific as possible on what it is we need. And here's where I see business owners go wrong, where I went wrong for many years, is I would give tasks that were too big for someone. I thought it was a task, and actually it was a project. So a task is like update the meeting notes about blah, 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 right? That is one step, maybe two, right? That's it. But if I said create a slide presentation for the meeting next Thursday, that's super vague. What is the topic? How many slides? How long is it? Who's going to be there? What do we need to include? Does it need to be data? Like there's 1,000 things going into that, right? And so sometimes we're like, do this thing, and we think it's a task because we've done it for so long that we forget, oh, actually, that's like a 15-step process that I have never shown this person before. And it's one of the things I actually teach you inside the Leadership Operating System, how to create those standard operating procedures so that you can easily and seamlessly show your team what success looks like, but also measuring that success. One of the things that causes most employees to not have a sense of responsibility inside the business is they don't know what change they affect inside. So every one of your employees creates some sort of return on investment. And I want you to think about it this way, because if they didn't, why would you hire them, right? And I can tell you this because let's say they own an ice cream store. I'm using this example for this picture. If they are rude to customers and they sloppily give the ice cream to someone, most likely those people aren't going to come back. And that affects the ROI inside of your business, doesn't it? It does. So I don't want that to be the case. I want your employees to understand what success looks like and how they actually make that happen. Now, from a child perspective, I can tell you that giving your kid chores is one of the greatest things you can do. But just like inside of your business, when you onboard someone, you're not asking your child, like I'm thinking of my son in this picture, hey, I would love it if you would refinance our mortgage. Go figure that out, right? What? You wouldn't give that to a kid, right? Just like you wouldn't give a huge client-facing project to someone that was brand spanking new on your team. And if you did, you would walk them through exactly what that looked like, what success looked like, so they could repeat it in the future. Be as specific as possible. It's incredibly, incredibly important. And don't forget that delegation is key to survival. It's key to survival of your team, of your children, all the things. And it's because everyone wants to feel valued and accomplished. And if they don't feel like they're a part of something, then it's really hard for them to take on responsibility because all they see is, I just do this one thing. I don't do a lot. So I want to leave you with a story. It's one of my favorite stories. And it was a story that someone told me many years ago. And there were 3 men. And these men were loading bricks. They were moving bricks back and forth. And the first man looked pissed off. He was angry. So the person that was noticing these 3 men walked over to him and said, what are you doing? And he's like, every day I'm loading bricks. I'm moving bricks from here to here, here to here. Every day, same thing. I hate this job. It sucks. So then he walked over to the next man, who also didn't look incredibly happy, but he didn't look as pissed off as the other guy. And he said, well, what are you doing? By the way, they're all doing the same thing, right? All 3 men are doing the same thing. So the second guy's like, well, it's kind of boring, but I'm building a wall. It's like, oh, okay. So he's building a wall. So he walks over to the third man, who is whistling. He's excited. He is really like just on fire for what he's doing. And the guy's like, what are you doing? And he said, I'm building a cathedral. Now, what is the difference between these 3 men? The difference is the vision that they were given, right? Move these bricks was man 1. Build this wall was man 2. Create a cathedral was man 3. We need to be sharing with our employees the cathedrals they're building so that they care about the work they're doing. We give them the right tools to build that cathedral, and we give them the right support, not just once, not twice, but ongoing. And it's a series of letting go. So I want you to know that when you start with someone, there's a lot more hand-holding. And actually inside the Leadership Operating System, I give you a 90-day onboarding plan for your team so that you actually have a week-by-week guide of how you should be onboarding and slowly letting go the reins so that the people on your team are productive and that you can keep them longer and you can focus on your business and not inside your business. I hope that this has been informative for you. If it has, I would love for you to put yes in the chat, and we will talk very, very soon.